Control statements are statements involved with the flow of control, or simply control flow, of a program. The control flow just refers to the order in which instructions are executed within a program. We can use such statements to produce incredibly exciting and sophisticated applications. Before diving deep into control statements in subsequent lectures, we're going to take a brief bird's-eye view of the control statements. In this lecture, we will look at syntax that might look a little bit foreign to you at the moment, but it's for the purpose of exposing you to some of the constructs and seeing them in action. I'll explain these in much more detail later, so don't worry if you don't understand what's going on yet. Let's first create a Section 3 -projects project inside of Intellij. So I will click New Project, and next, and make sure it's in a good location that I like, and it looks okay to me. Section 3 projects, there we go, and hit finish. Alrighty, then I'll expand this, and in this source directory right here, we're going to create a file called control statements intro. Right-click, new, Java class, and then control statements intro. Notice there's no hyphens, no spaces, no underscores, none of that. Okay, there we go. So before we do some coding, let me go over something briefly. There are 3 primary categories of control statements in Java. They are sequential or sequence control statements, selection control statements, also sometimes called decision statements, and repetition control statements, sometimes just referred to as loops. Sequential or sequence control statements are the default. These statements are executed in the order that they're written, one right after the other. This is what we've been using since the beginning. For example, if we declare an age variable and set it to 15 and then print it out, that is done in sequence. So let me write public static void main. There we go. And let's do this. Int age equals 15. And then I can do this. Stub it out.println age. Pretty cool. So let's run this. Right-click, run. And of course, it prints out 15, as we expected. So that's pretty straightforward and predictable, isn't it? Now, what if we wanted to make a decision based on the age? Say if the user's at least 16, they can drive here in the United States. So let's see what that might look like. So we're going to write a test to see if age is greater than 16 and then print out either you can drive or you can't drive yet. So I'm going to get rid of that statement. I'm going to put, this is a technique I use here, I'm going to put end main there. You don't have to, but that's just a little comment there to help me line up the curly braces again. So if the age is greater than or equal to 16, there's our relational operators. I put a set of curly braces, else is if that other thing isn't true, then this will get executed. And up in here I will print out system.out.println. I'll put you can drive, okay, or you can get your license, or to be more correct. But we'll just leave it as is. You cannot drive yet, or you can't get your license yet. That would be another thing you could put. So again, do you remember the relational operators from the last section? The greater than or equal to operator is one of them. Before, we were just printing out Boolean values that resulted from the relational operations, but now we're using them to make decisions. This if statement expects in between parentheses to have some sort of Boolean value here. And ultimately, this resolves to a Boolean value because it's a relational operation, so we're all set with that. So let's run this and see what happens. So I'm going to run that right there. And currently it says you cannot drive yet because we have age set to 15. That does not satisfy this condition, so it goes to the else section down here. Now what about, we'll say 19. Rerun it. And there you go. You can drive. Pretty awesome, right? So it chose only one of the options and ignored the other. So see how even though the code for being 16 or older is in one block of code, that block can be skipped entirely, breaking the normal or sequential sequence flow of control. As a final quick look at the last category, remember there's sequence or sequential, selection, and then repetition. We're going to look at the repetition control statements, or the loops. I'm just going to print out the numbers 1 up to and including the age with happy birthday in front of each of them. So after this little test right here, I'm going to put a regular old print line just to add some new line space. And then we're going to put, let me see here. We'll do that. So we'll say int I equals 1, because we're not really starting at 0 here. And, all right, then we will put that, and sometimes I do something like this. And even up here, I might even do end if else. But you, again, don't have to do this. Most developers, I'd say, don't do that. It's just one of the things I do, especially for teaching, but I found it actually helps me when I write my own code too, because then I can very easily keep track of where the curly braces are no matter which environment I'm in. So let's put system.out.println, and we will say happy birthday, and we're going to actually put a space here and concatenate it with the number right there from 1, and then it goes up to and including the age that was typed in up here. So let's run this and see what happens. Run it. And there we go. Right there. So this repetition control statement here is called a for loop, and it repeats from 1 up to including the age, printing the same statement essentially over and over again, but with a different age, the integer, each time. So every time it goes through this, it starts with the 1, and then it increments or goes up by 1 each loop or each iteration, and it keeps going until this is no longer satisfied, the loop continuation condition. Pretty cool. So this is all very exciting. However, it's just a brief taste of what's possible. Before we move on to the next lecture, I want to challenge you to simply say out loud the 3 categories of control statements again to make sure it stays fresh in your brain. So don't look back just yet. Pause the video and see if you can remember all 3. You don't have to fully remember what they do. Just remember their names for now. Did you remember the 3 primary categories of control statements? Here they are in case you need a little reminder. Sequential or sequence, selection, and repetition. Awesome work! Let's move on to the next lecture in which we will dive a little deeper into decision making with selection control statements. I'll see you there.